Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. I'm so excited. I am joined by an all-star rock star person this week. And I am so excited to have Stephen on the show. Welcome to the Conscious Investor.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Julie.
Oh my gosh. So Stephen and I always have to add that at the end because my husband is Steve. And so I'm like, okay, add the N. It's important. Somebody's name, right? Stephen and I met in July at Dealmaker Live. And there's just, as I've gotten to know him, there's just so much depth there. And I was telling him off air, I said, man, like you're just this really rock star investor. And then this extraordinary human being contributing to the world. And he has his own podcast, and he was recently on my friend's podcast, The Brain Dump, which everybody knows I reference this podcast regularly. So no surprise there. But so if you, haven't checked out that episode on Brain Dump, go check that out. It's so deep, so amazing. And then make sure that you check out Stephen's podcast. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell us, like, Stephen, who are you? Like, where are you at? You're like kind of like Austin Linney. You're always, traveling around and doing all sorts of things. So who are you? Where are you? What are you up to right now?
Yeah, well, my name's Stephen Pesavento, and I'm the host of the Investor Mindset Show. It's been a passion of mine to really dive into understanding how we can think better, how we can be better, and how we can do better. And specifically in that order, because what I recognized and realized along the way was that when you change your thoughts and beliefs, you directly change the actions you take and therefore the outcomes that you experience. And that's what mindset is at the core. And so I've been obsessed with this idea of how can I change and upgrade my own? And then along the way, I realized that in that process of being able to do that, I get an opportunity to share that with others. So the investor mindset really was born out of scratching my own itch, but while also realizing that this is actually a huge challenge that a lot of people deal with. That we're not thinking like investors. We're not thinking like entrepreneurs. We're thinking based on old programming that was handed down to us from our parents. And so for, nearly a decade, I've been obsessed about this, diving into it, understanding all the different aspects. And what I've been able to come out with is, a set of success principles that end up making a huge difference for people. And for me, where it all started was when I was a kid, I wanted to be one of two things. I either want to be a chef like Emeril Lagasse, or I wanted to renovate property like Bob Vila. And after a lot of resistance,
these are both good role models. I love it.
Exactly. Well, after a lot of resistance, I finally made my way into the real estate space. I started out as a management consultant, and I went down that traditional path, graduating from a good university and going to the corporate world. But there was something that was missing. It was that passion. It was that purpose that really was driving me earlier in life. And I went on this mission to go and figure out how to do that. Jumped into the real estate space. Flipped over 200 houses in 2.5 years. And again, came to that same place of recognizing, again, I'm not feeling that fulfillment. I'm not feeling that alignment. There's got to be another way to make an impact, to be aligned with the people that I'm working with. And that's what ended up drawing us into the commercial space and where Von Finch Capital is now. And, we go out and find really great deals for investors. And, we take everything from start to finish. They invest and we essentially do all of the rest. And it's been a great process because what I found is I'm now working with exclusively my ideal client, other successful, high performance, growth-minded people who are trying to create a better life. And I'm on this mission of inspiring other people to do exactly that. And one of the best ways in my eyes to do that is through real estate. And it attracts a lot of people who really believe that, we can have more. We don't have to live average.
What? I mean, like there's so much alignment with our stories, different tracks to get there, but exactly. And recently I posted over on social, one of the things I love is, hey, I get to choose who I work with. I get to work with extraordinary people and it attracts people. It's not like exclusive where, oh, I'm not going to invite these people to the table. It's it just naturally draws certain people into the scene. And it's so exciting. I'm curious, Stephen, like when you look back on your track record, most people listening, sorry guys, sorry, awesome audience, not, a lot of people have this part where they say, that's scary. Let's use basic words. That's scary. How did you find the courage to switch career paths or to, iterate into the next version? I mean, you left something that was working, and a lot of people are remaining in that, and they're trapped. You and I've both seen it. They're trapped in that fear. So how did you overcome that obstacle?
Yeah, well, life is scary. At the end of the day, that's the cold hard truth, is that your ability to handle and deal with uncertainty is in direct relation to how happy and how much you're actually going to enjoy life. And so after a lot of resistance, I had this dream as a kid, and I worked in kitchens, from 14 until 21. And early on in that process, I realized this is not the path I want to go. I'm trying to get as far away from the middle class, blue collar lifestyle that I grew up around. And so I abandoned both of those dreams. And in part, I abandoned the real estate dream because I had limiting beliefs, because I didn't believe that it was possible. I didn't believe that I had enough capital, the relationships, the experience, the family connections, any of those things. I didn't come from money, and I didn't come from, a family that was doing this type of real estate. But eventually along the way, what happened was going and doing this work, by all the same things we talk about in the Investor Mindset show over and over again. All the things that I hear from these extremely successful people is they end up having this shift, this moment of clarity that ends up happening that propels them down this path. And for me, that happened, back in 2016. I had this massive, almost spiritual like moment where all of a sudden everything was clear. And for me, I decided in that moment, I made a decision. And that's the key, right? When you decide 100%, you cut yourself off from all other options or all other pathways. And I went down that path with, that confidence, that assurance. And because I believed it in my mind that I was going to find a way, it happened. In that first year, I flipped over 75 houses, and I came from having no experience to going in and finding great people to learn from, finding great coaches and mentors, working with the right people, and eventually be able to model somebody else's business and have some of those same results and that same outcome. And so that was the difference. I recognized that it was more painful for me to stay in the place that I was at, to recognize that it took me 10 years from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad at 17 to finally get in and buy my first property. 10 years. Somebody who had gotten into that mindset that early, but there was enough fear and belief and all those limiting thoughts ended up holding me back. But it was once I decided that I went out and find other people who could support that belief, who had already done it, was when I was able to actually make that change. And the same exact thing is what happened in the single family business, because moving into creating a private equity firm to support the ultra wealthy and successful high income earners and high net worth individuals that we do with Von Finch Capital, the only way to make that transition was to leave the top of one mountain, transition downward as we go, climbing a much higher mountain. And although it took a little bit of time, it took a lot more confidence than it did time to know that I'm on the right path. Because when you start having success, your ego wants you to continue down that path. And even though I saw that there was another mountain that I could work from, that I could have a business, that I was surrounded with other like-minded people, and frankly, have more alignment of interest within my business, it ended up driving me down this place that by sticking in it, I mean, in the last 3 months alone, we've, quadrupled the size of our company. We're raising tens of millions of dollars in the last 2 months alone. And that momentum continues to compound. And what's beautiful about that is you start to see the results of that in your world. And for me, the results, of course, financially are phenomenal. But the big thing for me is working with customers that are my ideal client, people who are coming to me and saying, hey, Stephen, I love what you're doing. I trust you. I love the results that we're getting. And they're telling their friends, they're telling their friends. And when you find yourself in alignment, now it's like everything starts to happen the way that it really should.
All of this is so true. So I want to go back to this because there's so many like huge mindset components here. And you and I both really totally value the mindset components and that ability or that willingness to put ego aside. I still have Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy right there on my bookshelf that I have to pull down. And I'm looking forward to ingesting that. But that willingness, and it is a willingness. I know I'm obsessed with all things Ryan Holiday. So I'm like, Stillness is what I'm reading right now. And it's so good. But to be the willing to release ego, to walk down the mountain, down into the valley, knowing that you're going to have to climb the next mountain. You've already climbed a mountain. You know what it's like. You know the effort, the inertia, everything you have to give of yourself to reach the mountaintop. But to say, I'm going to descend down this, maybe glissade down for a little bit because that's fun. And then I'm going to climb back up. What do you think allowed you to do that, to make that? What would you say someone could listening? What was one of the indicators aside from, I want to be aligned with some, different people. I want something more. How did you reconcile this?
Well, I'll tell you how I ended up arriving here because I think the story will add some context. In that context, I think a lot of listeners will relate to. I was sitting at an event because I'm a big believer in growth and I'm constantly going and learning and working with coaches and mentors, and because I really believe in that. I'm sitting at this event and surrounded by high performers, and we're working on our business and end up, being asked this question of who is your ideal client and what is the business that you want to be building and who do you want to be working with in 10 years? And I looked around and I recognized, well, I'm making a lot of money, but I need to make a shift here because the people that I'm working with day in and day out are not repeat clients. I'm not building a long-term relationship. I'm spending $10,000 to $15,000 to acquire a customer. To make 30 or 40, it's a good return. However, it's a one-time sale and it's with a clientele that is not really at the same vibration. They're not thinking on the same level. They're not interested in thinking on the same level. And the truth be told, as a house flipper and somebody buying houses directly from homeowners, we have a phenomenal, powerful service that is really helping people transition out of different times, like whatever that might be that's going on in their life. People are very happy when they sell their house. And, some people maybe aren't the easiest to work with, but at the end of the day, a lot of those people, are not going to sell their house twice at 60 to 70 cents on the dollar. What we found and what I found was that I ended up being in this cycle of feeling like it was only about the money. There was no relationship. It was not a long-term business. And so I recognized in that moment, I needed to make a change. I needed to shift something. And I thought to myself, well, who do I want to work with on a consistent basis? I got clear on what do I want and why do I want it? It's one of the 5 success principles that I found after interviewing hundreds of investors, entrepreneurs, and successful people out in the world, that they get really, really clear on what they want and why they want it. So I was sitting down and I was getting clear on what was important, what we wanted that business to look like, what I wanted to be doing on a regular basis. And I ended up recognizing that I needed to build a business around my ideal client. I needed to understand who that person was. It was other successful, like-minded, high income earning, high net worth individuals just like me who want to go to another level, who are inspired by this idea of creating more freedom and flexibility, who are inspired to go to beyond where they're at, that they want to make a shift. And that's exciting to me because that's one of my ultimate skill sets, is taking very complex information, making it simple, and helping people radically change their beliefs and therefore change the outcome. Because when working as a high performance coach with these high income, high net worth individuals, it's really powerful to be able to see them make that change, but then to be able to do that hundreds of times on every single deal that we do because of the work that we're doing financially, and really be able to create alignment of interest that we win only when our clients win. It ends up creating this experience as a business owner where we're not fighting back and forth. Because in my old business, it was always a competition. The people who were buying the house wanted to pay the least. The people who were selling the house wanted us to pay the most. So we're always in this kind of conflict of what that is going to be. But in this business today that we've architected, that we've been intentional about building, there's an alignment. Now our investors win only, or we win only when our investors win. And so that was the big shift that happened. And it was the shift of the vision of what that could feel like, what that could look like, and knowing that it was possible to get to that destination. That was allowed me to be able to look at my business and say, hey, we're making a ton of money. We're succeeding in this space, but we want something different. We're going to take what we learned here and we're going to apply it and bring it to another level. And that's what we're doing today. I mean, we're hiring tons of very high level people who frankly have more success and decades of time in the real estate and private equity space than I do. But the only reason we're able to do that is, one, because of the vision that I have, but two, because I sat down and I got clear on what I wanted, why I wanted it. And what I want to outline for folks that are listening and why this is so important is because without a clear destination, there's no way for you to ever get there. You know, if I'm going to say, hey, go out and let's just drive somewhere. You're just going to get in the car. You're just going to start putting around. How are you ever going to know that you arrived where you're going? That's the way most people invest. And that's the way most people live their life. But that's the difference between high performers, is if you get clear on that destination first, one, it's a lot faster to get there. You're going to enjoy the process, and you're going to be the person who is dictating what that outcome is going to be versus allowing others to dictate it for you, because frankly, that's the way most people do it.
I am like just mic drops all over. There's a pile of microphones over here because you just bringing it to the table, and I'm not surprised at all, Stephen. So, here's the thing. I mean, I was just traveling from an event and I sat beside someone. I'm always proselytizing mindset, real estate, anything I could do. I actually helped somebody at the airport make a big mindset shift. Kind of felt a little Brennan Burchard-ish at the moment. I'm like, oh, yeah. But all this to say, I'm talking to this father beside his daughter, and, what are you investing in? He has a really good trade that I know in his area, is compensated well. And so I'm like, what are you investing in? I don't even think about it. I have like a 401k or something. And he's, at a particular age. And I got a little passion going on. I'm like, hey, that's not going to be enough to take care of you. Like you have to think bigger, when you get older, think about where this is actually going to lead. And if that's the life you want. And he kind of was like, yeah, actually, you're right. And like you said, most people are droning. They're just going through the motions of life. And if you don't set the trajectory of your life, somebody else will, and it's not going to be the life that you want ultimately. So, when you think about, if you're listening and you are, just think about when's the last time you sat with yourself and actually thought about what kind of life you want to have, going to the future self and saying, what is my ideal self? Is so paramount. So, in clarity is just absolutely key to all things. As you got clear, and now you're seeing that alignment, the energy, the vibration, everything, it all comes together. It congeals and it creates magic. I call it magic. It's not magic, but it's like this just super amazing stardust kind of moment. I'm not being very articulate today. I think my internet issues has like stolen my words.
You're great. You're on it. You're on it.
But anyhow, take us to where you want to go, because some people might listen to this and say, well, I'm glad you're helping those high income people. I love that because I see those people and they need more help now than ever when it comes to tax relief and such. But what is a future vision? If you look at, what you were building 10 years. Yeah. Go back to that if you want.
Yeah. Let me kind of like address something you said there, which I think is important. Yeah. And the whole thought of, hey, well, you only work with high income, high net worth individuals. And, the truth be told is we can make an enormous impact on people who can write larger checks, because when we work with a smaller number of people, we're able to focus all of our resources in one direction. Now, of course, we work with non-accredited investors as well, and we have a program that's available to folks who are in that path and people who build a relationship with us. And if you're interested in that, obviously there's directions and places that you can go to build that relationship to work with us. But for folks that maybe aren't in a place where they're making $200,000-$300,000 a year, they haven't saved up the money necessary in order to get involved in accredited only deals. One of the biggest things that I recommend you do is you be educating yourself so that you can be in that position. Because at the end of the day, you need to earn income or earn money in your business, and then you need to invest that money to create cash flow and wealth. You can't just be an investor if you're not making money. So you have to go out and find a way to make money. And so you have to change the career that you're in. You have to go and, create a business. You have to create a side hustle. You have to save that income. And even if that means that you are limited to making one investment into these types of deals a year, and even if you're limited making one investment of $50,000, and you think to yourself, saving up $50,000 seems like such a huge thing. Well, I want you to be thinking like an investor. I want you to be thinking about ROI. But one of the biggest ROIs you can get is actually by investing in yourself first, and then investing in your business. And your business could be a lot of things. Most people that start a business are self-employed first, meaning they are essentially making more money by being the person who is in charge of the entire business, but you are operating 100% exclusively you. You don't have a team. If you got hit by a bus, that's over. The business is over too. So what you want to do is you want to figure out, well, hey, how can I increase my income? And you want to use all the free resources that are available. There's lots of podcasts. We put out thousands of hours of content on the Investor Mindset Show. And for those people who do work with us one-on-one, they pay a premium for that, because in order to be in that position to work with somebody one-on-one to make those shifts, you're going to spend thousands of dollars a month in order to be in that position. And for people who are at the highest level, it makes sense for them to do that. But if you're in a position where you don't have that income, then you want to find another path. Maybe you're going to join a group coaching program. Maybe you're going to listen to the free content until you can spend the $100 or $1,000 in order to go and operate and work in a different level. And so the key is you're making these small shifts, and those small shifts create the foundation, and that foundation is what you build on. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they hear, oh, well, all these opportunities are only available to accredited investors. All these people only want to work with people who have a lot of money. Well, the truth is, yeah, it makes our job easier if we work with someone who can write a check for $200,000 4 times a year than work with 1,000 people who can write a $10 check. But the mistake that's being made there is when you hear that you go into some kind of shame about where you're at, or any kind of victim thinking, versus look at that and say, hey, how did these people get here? Getting curious. What did it take for them? Because most people who are making great money did not just come from money. A lot of people can be inspired to think, hey, well, if this guy can come from a family where, they're on food stamps and taking government assistance and doing all these things, going to college on the FAFSA program and finding a way to hustle to make money to eventually be in a position where they can inspire others, you can do it too. And so that's the big thing I want to outline. Yes, we focus on working with high income, high net worth individuals. We put out so much free content. You got no excuse to not become one of those people. That's a decision you have to make, and you have to prioritize that over the other things that currently are higher priority in your life today.
I love it. I love it so much. I've been speaking with some people in some growth friends, as I call them, and talking about the relationship people have with money. So what shift did you make? Because you mentioned earlier that you didn't, come from money necessarily. It was just, but now you have made this big mindset shift. And I think that that's one of those. I can look at my own personal evolution, and I can see that I've had to make very specific and deliberate shifts in my thinking about things. And you mentioned, not receiving something as shame, but looking at, okay, now I need to become curious and I need to show up in this other way. I look at people and I say, oh my gosh, Stephen did this. He can show me the way. I'm going to ingest his free content, and I have, you look at different people where they have elevated themselves through hustle, education, determination, shifting as people and evolving, and so much more, right? So what would you say that mental shift on money, generally speaking, what would you say the biggest, single shift people can make is?
Well, one thing I would recommend you do is that if any of this has appealed to you, I want you to take two actions. One, I want you to head into your podcast app right now or on YouTube and search Investor Mindset and subscribe to the show and start listening. Because if what we've talked about is of any value, even in the slightest, we dive into this twice a week. It's phenomenal. We're going to repeat the concepts that matter most. So that's an action you can take. But the second action is we put together a phenomenal guide on the 5 success principles of the investor mindset. And these success principles are universal across very, very successful people. And by taking these and applying them in your own life, you're going to be able to make massive shifts and changes. And this guide is going to walk you through exactly how to do that. It's going to inspire you. You can find that at investormindset.com/success. That's investormindset.com/success. And I recommend you download that, because if you download this 5 success principle guide, you're going to take some of these ideas that I've been talking about. And if you just choose one of them, you're going to make a huge change or a huge shift that can bring you to a whole nother level. But if you go as far to implement all 5, your life will be different in 12 months. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, because as I've invested myself and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and prioritized that time, effort, energy, and financial investment into myself, into coaching and mentorship and masterminds, all of that has then compounded and come out the other end where I've been able to go out and build and make a huge shift within the world, right? So I'm on this mission to impact over 1 million people and inspire them to create a better life through real estate. And that is something that you can join that mission to do. You can be one of those people who can then go and inspire others. But first, you got to go make those shifts in yourself, which means you've got to take ownership. So I definitely recommend, if any of this spoke to you, head over to investormindset.com/success and grab that guide.
Fantastic. And actually, we should probably start wrapping up. That's a great segue to wrap up. Are there any final points that you would say? And I love that. The link will be in the show notes, but it's also easy to remember. Make sure you go subscribe on both places, because that just says, hey, it's almost like just a virtual high five. You know, when you support people by subscribing, make sure you ingest the content and make sure you go and download those principles. And those principles, it's over time. It's, you know, consistency over intensity. It's about taking the small, deliberate actions. When you look back on yourself, you're going to be surprised at who you were versus who you are. I have that experience all the time. Stephen, have you had that experience where you're like, whoa, look at that version of myself way back there?
If in 5 or 10 years, I look back and I'm the same person that I am, I'm going to be very disappointed. Because when I look back at an older version of myself, I could choose to feel ashamed because I just see how much growth has happened. But I choose not to, because I choose to be grateful the fact that I've been able to go down this path and make these changes. And I hope that you will too. And in that process, you're going to end up having people in your life who you're going to realize are not really true friends. They're going to look at the changes you're making and they're going to feel afraid. They're going to want to pull you back. They're going to pull you down. And some of those people are going to be your family. And some of them you can't really let go of, and some of them you can. But along that path, what you're going to do is you're going to see yourself change and shift. You're going to like that better version. You're going to always have that feeling until you don't, to go back to that place that was once comfortable, where that habit was built. But no matter how old you are, if you're 50 or if you're 15, it doesn't matter. You can change the way that you look at the world. You can change the way you show up, and other people are going to look at you, and there's going to be some haters. There's going to be people who say, you know, I don't like any of that stuff you're talking about. I don't like this mindset thing. I don't like you being all positive or looking for the bright side. I don't like the fact that you're thinking about investing. That's where people lose money. All of these beliefs are beliefs that it can either hold you back like an anchor, or it can drive you forward like an engine. And you have to decide what direction you want to go. Do you want to be anchored in place and try to feel as secure as you can in what you know? Or are you willing to put growth first? Are you willing to step into the uncertainty and to have confidence and faith that change is going to happen, that there is a better world and a better life out there, and that it's not always going to be sunshines and rainbows, but that the clouds will go away and the sun will come back out. And as long as you continue to go down that path of growth, that you can experience massive change in your world. and that can happen financially, that can happen physically, can happen in so many different ways. So if anything that I've talked about has inspired you to take action, wonderful. I'm really glad to hear it. I always feel like within every conversation, a habit that I've gone to create, and I encourage you guys to do the same, is ask yourself the question, well, what can I take away from this? What can be something that I can go and do and put into action in my life today as a result of listening to this episode, spending 30 or 40 minutes consuming this information? Well, what can I put into practice right now? So I challenge you, what is that thing that's that really inspired you, that you think is going to make the biggest change? What's the thing that you're feeling the most most resistance to, that is probably the thing that you probably need to do most? And so lean into that and go run with it. And then shoot me a message on social media at Steven.Pesavento on Instagram or any of the other channels, and let me know what you loved about what we talked about today. And I definitely look forward to serving you guys along the way. So thanks so much for having me, Julie.
Just pure joy. You're so articulate and insightful. And as you said earlier, you're able to, really present the information in a way that's easily digestible. And I have no doubt that this has served, the listeners really well. And I appreciate your time. To all these amazing listeners, I appreciate you so much. Make sure you do connect up with Steven wherever it's convenient and comfortable for you. Make sure you send him a message and say, thank you so much. This is my personal challenge. And I'm just going to piggyback on that challenge. I recently started using the cold showers. I was resistant to it. By the way, a good book on resistance is Turning Pro. Go check it out. It's fantastic. But that concept of resistance, when you put yourself in discomfort, I didn't even realize that I had become a little bit complacent, and just doing that one shift of, implementing a cold shower really unleashed a whole new level in my life that I didn't know was hiding beneath the surface. It's lurking. So, level up today. And until next time, live big, love bigger.